Hello. Hello. Today is going to be one of your most favorite ever topics. Trust me on this one because I know that I absolutely love this conversation and I want to frame it with who we are speaking at because, as always, it's kind of like food. Once you remove all the added frills that goes into our daily nutrition, it becomes a lot more bland and not as tasty as something that has like additives and preservatives and like sugar and salt and all that kind of shit. That's usually the same with information. Once you add the nuance to it, it's not as sexy as, hey, this diet's going to make you lose 10 kilos in 1 week. But here we are with the nuance. And this conversation is about carbohydrates, because in a lot of female groups, people are like, yeah, well, carbs don't work for me. Carbs inflame me. I get inflamed from eating carbs. I'm intolerant to them. It doesn't work for my body. I just get bloated. I just get puffy. And then you get these quote unquote trainers saying, oh, it depends on the person, because for some of my clients, they just get puffy and bloated and they this, that, the other. It's like, you really question the trainers. Like if you saw a trainer say that, you would really question their approach to it, wouldn't you, Tom? Like,
well, yeah, like I really dislike this whole, well, it depends on the person, because obviously that doesn't mean anything. But when we say it depends on the person, it overstates the case, because you and I, Ruby, are not the same person, but we are the same species. We're not that different. And so it's not the case that, oh, well, some people can eat 600 grams of carbohydrates and be fine, and some people, they eat a slice of bread and everything just goes to shit. Unless you've got a specific allergy, like, that's not the case. We all metabolize food roughly similarly. It's really common at the moment to say, well, women are not little men, so women need to do nutrition differently. It's like, well, women aren't dinosaurs either. Like, we're not that fundamentally different. And while there is some slight nuance, especially in the margins, the idea of, oh, well, it just depends on the person, and some people just don't do well with carbs, it doesn't work like that. And again, unless we're talking about people with diabetes, either type 1 or 2, or somebody who's got a very specific food intolerance, to say, oh, well, we're all different and some people just can't do carbs, in my opinion, all that's doing is it's selling the idea that nutrition is more complex than it is, so you can get more clients, because it's just not like that. It's
absolutely ridiculous, because I did another post today in a group, and then someone's just like, yeah, well, it depends it depends on the person. Some people just can't tolerate it, and I do better without them, and I found it better for me this way. So this is the way that it is for anyone that has some type of disease, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, well, if someone has some type of disease, you wouldn't be getting your information off Facebook to start with. You'd be going to a specialist, number one. And number two, it depends on the type of disease, because people put people with PCOS and people with perimenopause and people with diabetes or type 2 diabetes all into the same bucket with carbs are inherently evil, but they aren't. Carbs aren't just freaking starbursts and candy canes and freaking chocolate. Carbs are also vegetables. They're potatoes. They're whole grains. They're things that are so beneficial for your health if you pick the right ones. I have 2 current T1 diabetics, type 1 diabetics, that is. And they came to me scared of bread, scared of fruit, scared of white food, on low carb because of a prior trainer that freaked them the hell out of carbs. And now they're eating over 200 grams of carbs, diabetics. And they're actually needing a lot more carbs now, and they're needing to fuel intra-training, aka during their training session, to keep their blood sugars up because of how hard they're training now, which is what we're framing this conversation with. People who care about their body composition, people who want to look sexy naked, people who want to build muscle tone. Not those that just want to see the scale go down and not really care if they look like a wet spaghetti flopping about in the wind, because we want to look good. We don't just want to flop around like spaghetti, which means just lose weight and look soft and all that kind of stuff, which is what happens when all you care about is a scale number. And in this, that was one of the conversations, but the other one was this lady who like this is actually notorious in Facebook groups. You post photos shredded to the bone, doing this hardcore David Goggins bullshit, or you're a comp prep coach, quote unquote, who doesn't really have any proper nutritional certifications. Here's another one for you, Tom. She's a holistic nutrition coach, certified in holistic nutrition.
Yeah, it's like if you give nutrition a prefix, it's probably bullshit. It's the same as medicine. Like medicine is medicine. Once you stop away from medicine and you look at alternative medicine or holistic medicine or natural medicine, it no longer works. Otherwise, you would just call it medicine. And it's the same with nutrition. Like X nutrition, generally a bit of a scam.
Unless it's like sports nutrition, because I'm kind of, But like...
That's defining things down. You could talk about like pediatric nutrition. That's not a scam. I think people know that.
I just wanted to kind of clarify that part because, it's.
I trust the audience to delve into that one and know what I'm talking about. I do find it really interesting. So I don't exist in the bodybuilding world at all. But I've got friends who do, and it's quite interesting to me that whenever people start talking about bodybuilding or competition prep or whatever, everyone seems super focused, in my experience, on like, oh, well, this doesn't digest well for me. Make sure you pick things that digest well. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I've never found that in any other realm of life. Like I coach people. Most people's digestion's pretty good. I'll occasionally get the odd person with IBS. Usually that's going to be stress related and we'll work through that. But yeah, it almost seems the default where every bodybuilder I know has to eat like these really bland diets with like white rice all the time because brown rice doesn't digest well, and they have to eat fish because chicken doesn't digest well. And it's like, I'm not being funny, but if your sport fucks your digestion that much, you should probably stop doing the sport. Like, I don't understand why not being robust is almost like something to brag about. Like, if your digestion is so bad that you can't tolerate brown rice, like that's a fragility, and you should probably look at like fixing that. Like that's not normal. That's not good. And again, like if you've got Crohn's or something, fair enough. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about people who are in competition prep who, for whatever reason, all of a sudden become very sensitive to certain foods. And one of the things that we do know very clearly from the literature is excessive calorie restriction renders your digestive system a fucking nightmare hellscape. And so if you're consistently under eating, this is when you're going to start feeling it. So when you were saying there, like, people will say, oh, if I eat carbohydrates, then that causes me bloating. If I eat carbohydrates, then it hurts my stomach. And usually when you chat to these people, either it's the case that they're just restricting food to the point that their digestive system is this nightmare hellscape that can't touch anything, in which case they just need to return to maintenance for a while and allow their digestive system to just sort its life out, or it's the case that they're restricting carbohydrates so much that every time they do eat carbohydrates, it's because they go through a full loaf of bread or they order a massive pizza and they just radically overeat because they're compensating for the fact that they've been restricted for so long. And if most people were to just eat a moderate to slightly high carbohydrate diet, even when they're dieting, they'll probably find that carbohydrates don't bloat them anymore because they're not being so restricted all the time.
Yeah, and I do have to add, you could easily be overeating and still have these issues because you're overeating, but you're undernourishing. You're overeating, but you're underfueling. Just like we spoke about in one of our prior podcasts, you could be undereating for majority of the day and then overeating at night. You could be ordering all of your food for nighttime, eating all of your meals and like eating most of your calories in 2 big meals. These are all going to fuck up with your digestion. That could be why carbs aren't working for you, because you are freaking starving the most active part of your day. Like I can't even remember if I said this while I was recording, but there was a girl who literally said that she doesn't really eat most of her food through the day. She eats it mostly before nighttime. That could be someone that probably says that carbs bloat you because you have more food in your stomach and because you ate more carbs at the meal, or you have some fear of carbs. It's that. But a lot of people, when they say that carbs make them puffy or bloated, it usually comes from a fear of food itself. And a fear of food itself can cause a lot of digestive distress. It can cause a lot of inability to, same thing, to digest food. It can cause bloating. It can make you hypersensitive to anything that you eat. And because the brain is so powerful in everything that it does, it does end up impacting your metabolism and your hormones in the long run, because hormones aren't just this voodoo thing. Like there's leptin, there's ghrelin, there's your sex hormones, there's a lot of different hormones at play. And your leptin and your ghrelin can get skewed just from the way that you think of food. Like the milkshake study, for example, having two similar calorie milkshakes and being told that one is decadent and full of calories, you might be like, oh my God, this is going to make me fat. There's too much calories in this. And you could drink half of it and be so full and then not really eat all that much for quite a few hours after, because of the belief around the milkshake. But then if it came to you as a skinny shake, not much calories, it's thin, blah, 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 but then the very same shake, you could gulp that down in the space of 5 minutes and still want more food afterwards, because in your eyes, it just was a wash down the pan. It was just a wash down the throat, that kind of thing as well. But,
yeah, the other thing with the oh well, carbs just make me puffy. This tends to come from people who are on low carb diets generally. So what happens is when you're on a low carb diet, your body depletes its glycogen. Glycogen is like where the carbohydrates get stored within your muscle. But when carbohydrates get stored in your muscle, they get stored alongside water. Now, that's a good thing. Anyone who's ever had a houseplant, if you underwater the houseplant, it goes all like floppy because the plant cells become dehydrated. You then water the plant, it becomes turgid again because the plant has now got enough water inside to maintain that structure. It's kind of what your muscles do. So if you, for instance, do a lot of exercise, then don't eat a lot of carbohydrates, you'll wake up the next day looking like a lot smaller, a lot less muscular than you ordinarily do. It's just because glycogen's been depleted alongside that muscle, so your muscle's not as full. When you then start eating carbohydrates again, that's going to get restocked. So your muscle's going to fill up with glycogen, your muscle's going to fill up with water. Because you've swung from like a super low carb state to a super high carb state, with super low glycogen to super high glycogen, super low water, muscle water to super high muscle water, what can often happen is that your subcutaneous water compartment, so the water is under your skin, sometimes that will compensate and like be quite high as well for like a day or two, and then it settles down. And so what tends to happen is people on low carb diets, they eat a lot of carbohydrates, and then they wake up looking puffy because their muscles filled up, so their subcutaneous compartment's filled up, and they panic and they think, oh well, carbs are bad. No, it's just being on a low carb diet tends to lead to this. The other side of that, of course, being that when people are on a low carb diet and they tend to eat a lot of carbs, the reason is because they've had a cheat meal or whatever, and so they've eaten a whole bunch of salt. And when you're eating a whole bunch of carbs and a whole bunch of salt in a condition where you don't usually do that, yeah, you're going to bloat. That's how that works. But it's not permanent. It's just because you've done it all of a sudden. So whenever, yeah, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if you think carbs are bad, you're not going to eat them, and then when you eat them, something weird's going to happen, and so you assume that carbs are bad, but it's not the carbs, it's the restriction.
Yeah, and if you think about at the same time, when you deplete yourself of carbs, not only is it everything that Tom said, but your training performance is going to go down the gutter. And because of that, you're not going to be able to perform as hard as you will. And then as soon as you add the carbs back in, okay, you have that. It's kind of like a sponge that just got wrung dry. Now the sponge is full again, but it's different in the muscle in the fact that, okay, it's full, like Tom said, but then you go to train. Now you train even harder and it feels even fuller, because now you also have the inflammation effect of training harder, which you weren't able to do when you were depleted of carbs, which is what a lot of people don't realize. And this is where people say, but my pants feel too tight and all of this other stuff, because your legs have so much muscle mass in them, typically. So they're usually the ones that expand the most. Like they are bigger than your arms. So you're going to realize or notice your pants getting tighter first thing, even if you're not in a building phase. You will notice them getting tighter, and it's going to be something you're going to have to get used to if building leaner muscle and looking leaner is what you want in the end.
Yeah, people don't tend to wear super tight sleeves either. So as you say, you're going to notice it in your jeans, just because jeans tend to be a tighter piece of clothing. But it doesn't mean your legs in particular have gotten massive or nothing.
And also because it seems to be around the stomach, and a lot of people are very hyper-focused on their stomach.
Yeah, of course. But there's just it's a fairly simple place for your body to store water when you get this compensatory increase. Yeah, it's a big frustration for me for that primary reason, because there are a lot of there are a lot of people online and a lot of people in nutrition spaces that, in my experience, it's something that I've said about nutrition more broadly. They find it difficult to sell their services by being honest. Because if you're honest about nutrition, it's not fucking complicated. Everyone wants to do their own research, but doing your own research in nutrition is one of the best ways to be wrong. Like, unless it's your job to look at this kind of stuff, most people should just literally stick to nutrition guidelines. Like, and then if you want to look at, oh, I want to build muscle, then stick to sports nutrition guidelines. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. You don't need an individualized nutrition approach, because you just don't. Outside of, if you find that you can't eat lactose because it makes you shit yourself, then don't eat lactose. You'll be fine. But like, if you look at sports nutrition recommendations, what are they? Eat about 1.4 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo ish. And make sure you eat a relatively high carb diet. Usually it starts at about 5 grams per kilo. And if you do that, you will perform better in the gym. You will build more muscle. And because that almost seems too simple, I think a lot of people try to reinvent the wheel. And they try to say, oh, well, why don't we do low carb performance? We don't do low carb performance because it doesn't work. There's a reason that nobody who is competing at a high level in the Olympics is doing that. There's a reason that nobody who competes at high level in competitive sport is doing that. If you think of your favorite athlete, they are eating a moderate protein, fairly high carb diet. And there's a reason for that. If you look at anybody who's in great shape, they are almost always, to a person, eating a fairly high carb diet. And if they're not doing that now, they certainly were when they built the muscle that they're carrying. And so, and you need to be aware as well, like, look, we're starting on a podcast here, right? I actually eat a really low carb diet. I don't even really eat a lot of protein, to be fair. I mostly eat fat. Do you see how easy that was to say? Like, you can just lie. Like, you can just tell people that you're on a low carb diet when you're not, and then you can sell your product as being on a low carb diet, despite the fact that's not what you do. Like,
because
if I did it,
agree that Tom's diet is high in carbs.
Yeah, I'm vegan. It's very high in carbs. But like, if it wouldn't be difficult for anybody to post a couple of videos of them eating a low carbohydrate meal and say that this is how they eat all the time, and then they can just sell themselves on that. So you don't know that. All you know is that hopefully you've paid enough attention to know that the sports nutrition recommendations, very high carb. The general nutrition recommendations, fairly moderate carb. And if people want to say, oh, the nutrition recommendations don't work, just bear in mind that there was a really big study in the UK, and fewer than 97% of people. So there was 97% of people tested were not sticking to the recommendations or guidelines. So before you say, oh, the guidelines make people fat, fucking no one's following them. So you don't get to say that. It's not how that works. So yeah, eat your carbs. They're good for you. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You're not special. Eat your carbs. You'll be fine.
See, this is the funniest thing though, because you just said sports nutrition guidelines. The funny thing is that people want to look like these fit, athletic people, yet they don't see themselves as someone who is going to eat like an athlete. An athlete fuels for performance. An athlete fuels for recovery. They spend most of their time away from dieting. You want to look like these people, but you're not willing to do what those people do because you don't think that is the way. It seems too simple. And I introduced the podcast with, as soon as you get rid of all the frills, all the additives, all the salt, sugar, whatever that is, you're left with the bare basics of just basic food. And that is the same with nutritional information. As soon as you get rid of all the frills and stuff online, and we tell you as it is, because I could easily say, hey, I got this body, I'm low carb, I do this, I do that, that sells. Just like Tom said, just like people do with their booty workouts. They do these basic things. And I can assure you that they did not grow their booty doing booty band workouts, because that shit is grown from lifting heavy ass weight. And on that note, you want, like, we're talking to people that don't want to look like the general population, because the general population look like they don't lift. You want to look like you lift, obviously, because that's who follows me. That's who follows Tom. We care about how we look. Therefore, you should care about what you choose to put into your body and how you fuel your workouts, because going low carb is going to lead to worse body composition outcomes. Why? Your performance is going to go down. your calorie deficit is not going to be a calorie deficit anymore. Why? Because now that you're low carb, your energy is going to be low through the day. Say your training performance goes down, that's another one. You'll be battling hard to try to keep any muscle mass that you grew because now you can't perform as well. And then your recovery goes down. So now, because your recovery is down, your energy through the day is now down even more because you're tired. And then go to add in more cardio, go to add in more HIIT because now results aren't coming. Now you're depleting yourself more. Where do you think you're going to go from there? You want to perform like an athlete, you need to fuel for it. And if you want to lose body fat at the same time, you still need to fuel for it. It's just you want to fuel for it while keeping in an energy deficit. An energy deficit, not just a calorie deficit, because if you think of just calorie deficit, you're only going to be thinking about the calories you put in and thinking about calories as exercise. Energy is a lot more than that. It depends on the type of food you eat. How are the foods impacting your energy? It depends on what activities you do. How is your training activity or your cardio activity going to impact the activity for the rest of the day? Because I can assure you that people try to add in more cardio actually end up gaining more weight long term because now they're so depleted. They might have burnt extra in that session, but the rest of their day, they burn a lot less and you spend a lot more time in the rest of your day. And then the whole under eating through the day, overeating, you just moved less in the day because you didn't fuel it. And the other thing that I was trying to put one on one together and I visualized it and something just clicked. If you aren't fueling your training, you're going to keep your cortisol levels high because the only way, like you wake up with naturally high cortisol anyway, like that's natural. People say that, oh my God, my cortisol's high, or some people that try to feed you into cortisol being high when you wake up, it's supposed to be. You just woke up. But say you're not fueling your training. Training is a stress, cortisol goes up. Say you haven't fueled that. Say your recovery is now here. You didn't fuel it. Your recovery is going to dip down even more. You don't refuel that. You haven't optimized recovery. You might eat something small after or have a protein shake. That wouldn't be enough to fill in the hole that you dug a majority of the time. Then comes nighttime. Your body is going to be wanting to make up all that energy back. It's going to be wanting to be recovered. So you're going to feel a lot more depleted at the end of the day, wanting to have all of these extra carby, sweety, salty snacks towards the end, and probably still not feeling satisfied after that because your body didn't get its chance to be at its best in that period of time. And that's something that I found as well. And this is especially true when you're in a deficit because you're already in a depleted state. Like maybe if you're in maintenance and surplus, it doesn't matter as much as it does in a deficit. When you're in a deficit, this shit matters. Take it away.
Yeah, I think a big thing that I believe people sort of fall into, just based off working with lots of clients over the years. So success leaves clues, right? If you look at anybody who is in stereotypically good shape, how did they do that? Well, they ate a fairly high carb diet and lifted weights for a really long time to build some muscle while in a calorie surplus. And then they ate in a way that allowed them to keep up their training intensity while they dieted. So they kept their calories quite high while dieting, and they kept their carbs quite high while dieting as well. And it almost feels as though people think, well, I want to do that as well, but I want to do it faster. And what I need to do, therefore, is suffer more. And it just doesn't work like that. I really like the analogy of someone trying to get a suntan, where like if you want to get tanned and you're going to use a tanning bed, which you shouldn't because you'll get skin cancer, but let's say you're going to use a tanning bed. If you go on for 6 minutes for a really long time, you're going to get a tan. If you go on for 20 minutes for a shorter time, you're just going to get sunburned. It's not the case that you can just do more, and it speeds up. Eventually, you hit those diminishing returns, and you just end up suffering for no reason. There's no prizes for the person who can gain muscle on the lowest carbohydrate intake. There's no prizes for the person who can diet harder than everybody else. All you need to do is work with your body rather than against it, and it feels sometimes like people are just using low-carb dieting and super restricted dieting. It just feels like a punishment. It just feels like, well, if I can suffer more, then it'll be better. And if my coaching is anything, I want people to start working with their body rather than against it, and realize that, yeah, if you're going to diet, you're going to be hungry sometimes. If you're going to train, you're going to be sore sometimes. But it's not this grueling, horrible thing that needs to take over everything and sap all of your energy for the rest of your life. You need to eat well enough to fuel it. You need to train hard enough. And then the rest of the time, you just need to wait.
I actually really liked that part too, because it feeds back into this. I think it was a podcast with you, but if not, I'm going to do the rant again. But it feeds back into that whole scale weight thing, in that most people could benefit from banning the scale for at least 6 months. I usually put 6 months as a minimum on my girls, and they end up not wanting to use it ever again because of the way that I shift their mindset, because of the way that I shift their meaning of progress and what they focus on. And it's away from scale numbers, and they start to understand and feel again. They never actually felt their bodies. They never tuned into their bodies before, because it was wake up, weigh the scale, oh mighty oracle, tell me how to feel for today. And then it just dictates their mood and everything else, and then so on and so on. It's just a cascade. It's like your whole day is revolving around that number. And if you're someone who is of the type that fixates on numbers, because I know I translated that fixation on numbers to then the fixation of numbers in the gym, always chasing PRs. And that doesn't serve you either. It's like you need to learn how to tune into your body to push yourself, but that is a skill to learn, and it doesn't come overnight. But I wanted to go back to something you mentioned ages ago. Check out the veins from the carbs. That is great. Yeah, see, I'm definitely not a low carb girl. Give me 600 grams of carbs and I'll be happy. I'm not on 600 grams, but I would be happy if I was. But I suffer extremely bad IBS, and it flared up so bad last year, and it triggered something, and it's going to take a while to recover from. But the thing is, when you're suffering from IBS, it does not just mean cut out all carbs either. You need to figure out what your body tolerates and what it doesn't, what you're willing to tolerate with discomfort and what you're not. But at the same time, you could tolerate a food well, but one day it doesn't go well with you. Or maybe for a whole week, you just feel like a potato sack because your digestion isn't cooperating. And something that happens in your menstrual cycle phase is there are periods of time where you have high hormone levels, and you might just have to tolerate a lot more discomfort for those couple of weeks, because it's making your belly a lot more sensitive. Like I find people, like I have a couple of girls that get more recurrent migraines when their estrogen is really high. And there are some people that are just like that. And it's the same with your body. It does not inherently make carbs evil. It just means you need to be a lot more careful with your choices. And it might mean you do need to eat rice cakes over whole grains. It might mean you need to pick the white food. Oh no, white food's bad. But you might need to pick the whiter options over the high fiber options that your belly might not agree with. It might mean saying no to some things if you don't want to tolerate that discomfort, because that can have you feeling that way too. But it's not about the symptoms you're experiencing. It's about the root cause, because you can do all you want to do to band-aid the symptoms. But what's the cause of it all? And a lot of the time it's stress. A lot of the time it is your mindset around things, because your mindset induces that stress as well. Like I said about the mindset around food, I did a podcast with Gab Fundero on this. I think it was like 260 or something, because this would be like 300 and something now, but 263, 267, something around there. But yeah, it's the stress element of it all, and I'm sure you deal with that with your clients as well. But women in particular, they put so much pressure on themselves. They go in and deal with a lot of high stress, but it doesn't inherently make any food bad. You need to stop looking at food in isolation. And if anyone says, because I did a reel on this as well, but if anyone says, what do you think of this meal? Is this good? Well, I don't know if it's good or not. I could show you something that I eat, which is just plain jam on bread, that's not a good meal if that's all that I eat, because there is no substance to that. But if you look at the rest of my food, I've hit all my plants, I've hit all my protein. Zoom the fuck out and be careful about who you see on. I really want to tie back to the beginning and come back to this conversation of trainers, quote unquote, holistic this person, quote unquote. I don't want to hate on anyone or badmouth anyone, but it is toxic. It's
if you're a
just
holistic nutritionist, you're a con man. So
I'll let Tom say it for me, because honestly, yeah, it is true. You are. And the reason why it impacts me so much is because I see people falling for this shit, but not that, because I was someone with disordered eating. And these people are perpetuating that by saying, but my clients can't tolerate it because they get puffy, this, that, and the other. So it works for different people. That's not something that should be allowed to be spread around the internet in groups that are so highly influential, because so many people are misinformed and they don't know any better other than to believe it. And other than to believe it because, hey, these photos, she looks good, she must know what she's talking about. It's toxic.
Yeah, and I would never blame somebody for falling for a holistic nutritionist telling them something, or in the UK, like I would never blame anyone for falling for what someone like Tim Spector says with the Zoe Project or anything like that, because the sad truth is these people should be trustworthy. Like, as a member of the general public, you are not going to be educated on nutrition science. As someone who works in this industry, who, like, some people think I know a little bit about what I'm talking. I'm not that educated on nutrition science. Like, very few people are. Unless you've got multiple PhDs, you're not. And even then, people are not trustworthy because they just fucking lie. And like the equivalent that I always give is like, I know very little about cars. I know very little about mechanic stuff. So if I take my car to the garage and the mechanic tells me, oh, this is wrong with it, I just trust that. Like, I have no specialist knowledge to be able to disagree with that. And so I'm in a position where I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. And they could lie to me. I would have no way of knowing. And this is the position that the general public are with a lot of people who are disseminating nutrition information. Most of the nutrition misinformation that you see online does not come from some stupid influencer. The vast majority of it comes from people who are doctors or PhDs. And these people are in a position of influence precisely because of those qualifications. And those people should be trustworthy. So no, I would never blame a person for being bought in by some doctor who tells them to go low carb, or some PhD who tells them that they need to adopt a low whatever diet because whatever is bad for your microbiome, because you should be able to trust these people. And it's just the unfortunate case that you can't. And all people like us can do is just hopefully put out good information, and hopefully people encounter it. And maybe if we can put out enough good info, some people will be protected, I suppose, if I want to be egotistical about it, from the shit that's out there.
It's funny. I said this to my dad the other day because he pointed something out. And he's like, oh, you should watch this. I'm like, why the hell would I watch something that I know more on? Because it was some stupid news channel. There's two things that I heard on a podcast that I think are really powerful to note over here. One of them is when they spoke about the news. It's like, a good news day is one that's full of tragedy, one that's full of bullshit, one that's full of negative news. That's a good news day to a reporter. It's not great news. It's not things that are positive. A good news day is things that's going to cause controversy, because that's what gets the most clicks. Negative things get the most clicks. Controversial topics get the most clicks. Why else are there such bullshit episodes from fucking Huberman? Because he brings guests on that cause the most controversy. Like, there was a guest, I don't even remember who it was, but there was a guest he got on that sparked the whole nutrition industry into an uproar because of the absolute bullshit he laid out on carbs and fruit. I think that's what he was mentioning, but it was absolute rubbish. Like, I just saw dietitians spouting out so much shit against Huberman's episode on what this guy said. It's not Huberman. It's the podcast guest that he gets. And Huberman's someone that has sort of an open mind, I would hope, but you're going to get people that get you money on your podcast.
Yeah, this is it. It's the controversy, it's the money. And I don't think open-mindedness per se is a virtue either. Like, Joe Rogan's open-minded. That's why he's an absolute retard. Like, there's that phrase of like, oh, if you open your mind too much, your brain falls out. And I think a lot of people who like, oh, we should be having these conversations. You need to have an open mind. No. Like, if you've got an open window, that's how birds get in. Like, you need to make sure that, yeah, if you've got an open mind, you need to apply an awful lot of critical thinking. And the problem is, and this is what very few people want to talk about, domain-specific expertise is really fucking important. Like, if I was to sit on this podcast and spout some absolute made-up shit with nutrition, the vast, vast majority of your listeners would not be in a position to argue that because none of them have studied nutrition. Again, mechanics. If I was to be told something by a mechanic that's wrong, I can't use critical thinking to counteract that because I don't understand enough about mechanics to even think critically about it. And this is the massive problem, in my opinion, with the podcast style that like Huberman and to an extent like Joe Rogan as well. Like, it's my issue with that is that they invite people on and just essentially give them a platform to say whatever they want, completely unchallenged, because Huberman is not a nutritionist, he's a neuroscientist. And so when he brings on nutritionists, when he brings on physiotherapists, when he brings on people like that, he is not equipped to even question them. And that means that they can just say whatever they want and they get given the veneer of legitimacy because they're on a podcast of someone who is he's obviously very intelligent and he's ostensibly an authority. And for me, like, this is one of the biggest problems in media at the moment, is there are a lot of people who will say, oh, well, free speech is important, we need to be having these conversations, we need to have an open mind. And the issue is that this is why you end up listening to absolute imbeciles. And also, this is why people are so susceptible to marketing. There is a reason why every other bellend is doing ice baths on their Instagram feed, because people are approaching that with an open mind. And it's like, you are wasting a lot of money. You are not getting any benefit from that if you're already an active person who eats well. And you're doing it because you're listening to idiots and you don't have the critical thinking there because you don't have the domain-specific expertise. You can be as intelligent as you want. You can have fantastic critical thinking. If I started talking to you about quantum mechanics, not that I could because I understand nothing about it, you wouldn't have the capability to question that because you don't know enough about it. And this is why I dislike podcasts like Huberman's, because it causes more problems than it could ever possibly solve.
And that's exactly the same as Facebook groups, because it's almost like you get shut down as soon as you say something that doesn't align with someone's philosophy. And that's the other thing as well. It's like you listen to things and see things based through your own experiences and perceptions and beliefs. So there's a quote, which I fucking love, that bird one, but it's kind of like, I'll come back to that quote, but it's, I don't even know what quote it was now. But going back to the last podcast, we said how it's just like, yeah, you want to have flexibility like a stream, but you need to contain that stream like a river. Otherwise, you're just going to have water going all over the shop. So that's kind of the way that you need to think about it. And like, what are your values? What's guiding you? What is the critical thinking, like you said? But fuck, I forgot that analogy now. But that was actually going to be a really good one. But yeah, I think that this is a really great way to end the podcast, because you really need to be careful who you do get your nutrition from. And it's not just what you listen to on the news. It's, I mean, what people tell you. It's like, you can listen to stuff on the news and you'll be able to question it and say it's bullshit when you know stuff about it. Like, I bullshit radar every single thing that's nutrition related. Fucking Netflix documentaries. That's another one that you can give a little flick, because they're absolutely bullshit, but you expect it to be true because it's a documentary. It's meant to be factual. No, it's not actually. It's there to get views. It's there to get your engagement and cause controversy. But it's basically a platform for people to go onto the TV, to put out their opinions, to sway people that believe anything, because you will believe anything if you don't understand it enough. Just like when I view things on the internet or on TV about, I said this to my dad, which is why I wanted to bring it up again. I was talking about cars too. It's like, I could watch something or listen to something about freaking cars because I want to like know more about cars, and I'll just believe it off the straight, because I don't know how to believe anything else. And same when you're looking up things on the internet. Whatever you look for is what you're going to find. And people think that researching is the in thing now. So then they go researching. Whatever you research for is going to confirm your bias, because there's research on everything. Just recently, my mentor put up a photo in the mentorship group, and it's like 35,000 or 350,000, I don't know, something in the huge numbers of studies got retracted because they were bullshit. People can just throw up anything these days as well. And that's how I'm ending it. So
I've said my piece.
So be careful who you listen to, be careful who you believe. I always say find 3 people, 5 people max that you know you can trust, that have nuance to what they say, that have open conversations, that admit when they're wrong. Like you hear me and Tom kind of try to get clarity on some topics with each other sometimes, because we're bringing different viewpoints to it to try to find something that coherently makes sense for the majority of who would be listening to this. Listen to those people more and block out the rest. And if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If it looks like it comes with too much salt, sugar, and fancy icing, it's probably too good to be true as well. And I don't mean that in terms of food. I mean that in terms of promises. And don't believe people based off what their body looks like, because they can do one thing and say another, but they can also look a certain way in spite or despite, or one of those words of what they do. So I hope you liked this podcast. If there's anything else you want us to cover, let us know. Otherwise, we would address another question, which a lot of the questions were around carbs. So that's what we addressed today. But other than that, love you all. And I hope you're enjoying your start to this year. And you will catch me and Tom on the next one.
Cheers, guys.